All right, so our first conversation now, Nigerian St. Kitts in partnership with Aquarian Consult Limited, a business development company there. We see that they're partnering at this point. We've seen a structure, this one by Aquarian Consult, trying to build a transatlantic collaboration between Africa and the Caribbean. The inaugural edition that held in Abuja, that was in March 2025, has already begun to bear fruit at this time. One of the standout outcomes is a groundbreaking agricultural partnership with St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's learn more about what this means and what this partnership would mean for agriculture in both countries. Joining us for this conversation, we have Senator Abubakar Kyari, he's an Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security. We also have Honorable Samal Doggins. He's the Minister, Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources et al. At St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have Aisha Maina, Managing Director, Aquarian Consult Limited. It's great to have you all on the show today. Good morning. All right, let's start with Ms. Aisha Maina. Now, so, this partnership, I believe, is an initiative through Aquarian Consult, Afri-Caribbean Investment Summit, 2025. Talk to me about, this partnership, and if you see, opportunities to expand this collaboration between, beyond Nigeria and St. Kitts and Nevis to, encompass broader African Caribbean agricultural partnerships. How are you seeing that?
Good morning, and thank you for having me on. I mean, your question wasn't too clear because, it was breaking up a little bit, but I think I get the gist of what you're trying to ask. So yes, in March this year, we had the Aquarian Consult Afri-Caribbean Investment Summit, and it brought Africa and the Caribbean together. The Prime Minister of St. Kitts, and it brought Africa and the Caribbean together. The Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis graced us with his presence with a fantastic delegation, which included the Minister for Agric and Fisheries and Marine Resources. And a lot has happened since then because the country of focus was St. Kitts and Nevis. So we've done a lot with St. Kitts and Nevis in pushing the Afri-Caribbean Transatlantic Bridge. In 2026, we are going to have another summit. However, we are also curating in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security and the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources of St. Kitts and Nevis and Caribbean, the first Agriculture and Food Security Summit. It's in private sector in agribusiness from the Caribbean and Africa, ministers of agriculture from the Caribbean and Africa together to talk about the challenges that we'll face just to bring the two regions together, talk about the possible solutions and begin the conversations to connecting Africa and the Caribbean. I have to say that I have the ministers of Agric to fully thank for their cooperation and their investment and dedication to seeing that this transatlantic bridge is formed. And, we're looking forward to ensuring that private sector and public sector come together to build a bridge because one cannot do it without the other.
For that, but let me take this to the Honorable Minister, Senator Abubakar Kyari. Now, definitely we know food is serious business in Nigeria right now. We definitely have our struggles here. But, Honorable Minister, break it down for me, what brings, Nigeria and St. Kitts, and Nevis, together in this collaboration in your view?
Well, let me first welcome my colleague from St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Dugan, who has been here before and also hosted some of our team in June in St. Kitts and Nevis for the investment forum. This is the third time we're meeting with him. And by and large, this partnership is about not only production, but also about processing, adding value to agricultural commodities and taking it to the marketplace and by extension export. And we as government, we have decided to come together, to partner, and give an environment, an opportunity for the private sector to thrive, to have this collaboration, trade between Africa and the Caribbean. This predates even diplomacy, our relationship between, of course, the Caribbean islands and Africa, through, of course, we all know the unfortunate incident of the forced migration, which is slavery. But by and large, we've kind of have almost similar cultures, similar traditions, similar diets. And I think this is an opportunity for St. Nevis to explore what we have here, because it's a small country. It's I think it's the smallest in terms of both population and size in the Western Hemisphere. And in as much as their domestic population is low, but their tourist population is really huge. At any given time, you have a huge tourist population that they, at the end of the day, have to import food. And we look at a situation where we're just across the Atlantic, and the potentials in agriculture in Nigeria is huge for them to take advantage of. And this is an opportunity for the private sector to thrive. So we, the public sector, the government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has mandated us to open up Nigeria in all sectors to collaborate and open up businesses. And we are opening up. We have done for other countries, and this is a brotherly country, a sister country, that we believe that we can have a robust partnership.
Thank you for that, Honorable Minister. But let me take you to Honorable Samuel Doggins now. He's the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources, and Kitts and Nevis. Thank you so much for visiting us today. But I'd like you to, give me a brief, overview. What's the food situation like, in your country? And why would you say agriculture is such an important area for cooperation between, Nigeria and, your country?
Well, thank you for having me, and a pleasant day to all. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we are, as indicated earlier, one of the smallest countries in the Western Hemisphere. However, we predominantly survive on tourism, and at any given time, we would have an influx of tourists, and we see about 1 million tourists. So when you look at our food capacity and intake, it is, for our scale, quite extensive in terms of our demand. But all of that, about 80%, comes to the U.S. And where that food originates from, sometimes we have no clear idea. The idea here now is to connect to Africa, connect with Nigeria, where we know where that food is being cultivated. We know the mechanisms behind the cultivation, and it is shared ideologies that produces that food. So when we consume food, we know the nutritional value. When we consume that food, we understand the energies that went behind putting it into the earth and collecting it and extracting it from the earth. And we also can, be happy with the quality of that food. So this connection is more than just, as we say, feeding ourselves. It's really connecting shared history and a shared destiny, because we have been one people from the beginning of time. We were at one time forcibly removed from the continent, but now we're reconnecting that lifeline, reconnecting that blood. And I believe that this presents an opportunity for a valuable move forward to see Africa and its diaspora come back together and reunite in a powerful way. And there's no better way to do that than through something as fundamental as food, because we cannot survive without food. And as we trade and as we come together, at the foundation of it all is to be able to feed each other and feed ourselves in the process.
All right, so Honorable Doggins, in the short term, what do you see, as the benefits, from this partnership, for your country in the short term?
So in the short term, the first part is to be able to enhance trade between both regions. You know, Africa offers scale, knowledge. St. Kitts and Nevis definitely offers innovation and a gateway to the Western world, to the Caribbean region and the wider West. And we believe that in the short term, by this trade and this exchange of food commodities, we can see the development of both economies. You have a wide business sector here in Nigeria that is doing quite a bit of substantial work in agro-processing. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we are surrounded by a number of territories as well. And we believe that our ability to innovate, match with your scale and your knowledge, can see huge benefits for both territories across the Atlantic.
All right, thank you so much for that. Let me take it now to Aisha Maina. She's the Managing Director, Aquarian Consult Limited. So, you know, looking at this partnership, you know, more broadly, how do you see it impacting trade, you know, between Africa and the Caribbean region? You know, generally, we know right now, you know, since the President Trump presidency, it's been about tariffs at this point. We weren't talking about tariffs, you know, before now, but everyone's, you know, scampering, trying to find, you know, that good deal at this point. So how are you seeing that?
So when you are in a small market, you generally produce for the small market that you're in. The idea of this partnership between governments is a couple of things. One, government can create policies that open up the pathways for private sector to do business together. That's number one. Number two, the more we talk about trade excuse me, between the regions, the larger we see the market, and it means that we would have motivation to produce more because it's a larger market that we can supply to. Secondly, or thirdly, the regions need to connect because, just to your point, right, we depend a lot on the global north. And while I am all for collaboration and cooperation with the global north, I feel that there's too much of a dependency on the global north. So much so that it's to the detriment of us, even locally. For example, you heard about the ginger, you know, cost of ginger, and, you know, they said that is because a lot of people were exporting. So we depend so much on the global north to the detriment of even us locally, because all we want is to do business with the global north. Whereas when the regions come together, it becomes an interdependency, not a sole dependency. So it's not like one is doing the other favor. It's that we are growing together. Also, a lot of times people look at the Caribbean and say, well, their population is just very little. It's not even up to a state in Nigeria. But it's more than number of people on an island. It's about strategic placements. So today, if you look at, you know, global geopolitics, you see the, like you rightly said, the tariffs that President Trump has put in on different countries. If we come together, when we come together, a few things would happen. One is we may not even need to export to the United States because the market that we will have across the regions will be dependent on itself and be big enough. And when we do export to the global north, we will be coming to the table with something to offer, not just asking for something to be given to us. On the other hand, because the Caribbean is strategically placed, we can trade with not just North America, but with South America as well, and go from South America or North America to Africa and vice versa. So this connection is trade, it's investment, but more than that, it is the reconnection of global Africa. Because if we don't connect as global Africa, we'll continue to depend solely on the global north. And as you can see, we're not really getting to where we need to get to because we're solely dependent. And I'm really excited about this partnership because it's the conversation that starts the action. And the implementation of it I have a lot of hope, and I trust that it will be properly implemented because the ministers are forward-thinking, strategic, and understand the global picture and understand why we need to come together. So more than just leaving it to government, I'm also imploring private sector to weigh in, come in, because until private sector comes in and highlights the challenges as private sector to government, government will set the policies but not understand the challenges that will ensure that this trade happens. But the more private sector comes in and the more we continue to collaborate and communicate with government, it means that the policies can be tweaked to ensure that there's actual mutually beneficial trade and investment that is happening. Culture can be exchanged. Trust, more than even goods, can be traded.
All right, and definitely looking at post partnership, and hopefully both countries are able to implement well. What do you think we can use as a metric to measure the benefits both countries are getting from post partnership?
So I didn't hear the question clearly, but let me see if I get it. What metrics are we going to use to measure
the benefits
the impact
for both
of the partnership?
Post-partnership, yes.
Okay, so very simply, right, like Minister Duggan said, their imports is mostly from the USA. And there's data to show how much they import, how much they spend on that import, right? There's data to show even the quality of food that they get, even if they don't understand the origins. Now, when this partnership happens, that data can be looked at again. Today, there's less than 1% of trade between Africa and the Caribbean. Just knowing that, when this partnership happens and trade starts to happen, and we shift from 1%, that is already a metric that you can see. The fact that we're talking more and more and more about the Caribbean is already a metric that we can see. And as we go along, there is data that shows what we as Africa do in terms of imports and exports from the global north. There's data for what the Caribbean does for imports and exports from the global north. As these partnerships happen, the data will start to show the benefits. One of the other benefits is that for the longest time, we have been programmed not to trust each other, to feel that we're so far away from each other. And a lot of times when we think about the Caribbean, we think about the Caribbean in a certain way. When the Caribbeans think about us, they think about us in a certain way. And most of it is not positive. But the more we interact, the more we trade, which is why I said that more than trading goods is trading trust. We start to change that narrative. We start to see that we can trust each other. So you're going to see that people are banking more, for example, in the Caribbean. There's more trade or financial transactions between Nigeria and St. Kitts and Nevis. More visits. People are more interested in understanding what St. Kitts and Nevis is about, and vice versa. So I think that the metrics will be really easy to monitor and evaluate.
All right, thank you so much for that. But let me try to get the final word now from Honorable Minister Senator Abubakar Kyari. So talk to me about how this collaboration will help address, food security challenges in Nigeria. Now, we know, consumers have been struggling with high food inflation, for the longest time. We've almost gotten used to, food prices being high, even though we're seeing, prices coming down at this point because of harvest season. So, talk to me about how it will help address the issues here in Nigeria.
Well, let me just add to what Aisha had just mentioned in terms of collaboration. That how do you measure metrics? What metrics do you use to measure collaborative partnerships of this nature? Just imagine, like we had other partnerships last year where the Minister of Agriculture of Saudi Arabia came with his business partners, the private sector of Saudi Arabia. And after the meeting, they went back and gave us a demand of about 1 million tons annually of soybeans, for instance. We got into work as government. We created the policy document. The strategy document and policy document was launched sometime about 6 weeks ago, and it was primarily driven by private sector collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security to come up with a document that will give an easy operative environment for the private sector to thrive. And you also know that we have over 70 million hectares of arable land, of which only half of it is being cultivated right now. So this gives an opportunity to open up those areas that were not available before for additional cultivation. Our soybean capacity production is a little less than 2 million tons, but our demand is almost about 3 million tons locally. And so there's an added demand that is coming from the outside, so which means it gives an incentive for farmers to cultivate. Government in itself cannot cultivate. It gives an environment, it gives opening for the private sector to thrive and cultivate and provide those incentives, take care and advantage of those incentives that is coming from abroad. So let me go to your own question. Yes, we have struggled in terms of food security. Mr. President had identified that long time before, when he declared an emergency on food security, and also when he changed the name of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. But you would agree with me, and also Nigerians and viewers would agree with us, that what we have achieved this year, for the first time in the history of this country, during festive seasons, Ramadan, lean seasons, we are currently in the lean season, but prices are still depressed. So prices are down, but the issue here is, let me just go straight into it. We still talk about challenges. I mean, yes, there are challenges, and that's why government is in place to address those challenges. And I think we have done tremendously well. In a matter of less than 2 years, we've been able to achieve food inflation, bringing it down, crashing by 50%, for instance. When last year, this time, food inflation was hovering around almost 40%. Today it's 21%. So I think you could see the trajectory of what government is doing, of what the policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing to dampen food prices. We're not where we are, where we want to be, but at least it's giving us an indication that we're achieving. It will not, things like that will not happen overnight. But when you see a direction, that gives you hope. And that's the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, that food inflation will be taken care of. And I think policies that were courageously done have been starting to yield results. This is August. Usually, the middle of cultivation, prices are usually high. When harvest comes, prices start rising. But what we are seeing is predominantly, across the country, we see prices still at the lowest that we have seen in a couple of years, and even in real terms. Yes, I know farmers there's the issue of input prices and what have you, but let me say that go around. I traversed, I think, over almost 2,000 kilometers within the last 3 weeks. I've been to Oyo State, I've been to Nasarawa, from Abuja to the shores, to the banks of the River Benue. I've been from Abuja to Kano to Azare, and I have not seen a single empty plot of farmland that is not being cultivated because of hardship. So market issues will play itself out. It's about production, it's about supply and demand, and right. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of production. We saw a lot of production in 2024, right. And we are seeing also a lot of production in 2025.
Thank you so much.
I've said it here in this studio before, the prices will come down, and I'm still giving you that assurance. Prices Fantastic. Will continue to go down.
All right, we'll definitely love to see, with the rebase data, that prices of food are actually really, really going that. We're definitely hoping, the data actually agrees at some point. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Senator Abubakar Kyari, Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Nigeria. Honorable Samuel Doggins, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Marine Resources et al., St. Kitts and Nevis, and Aisha Maina, Managing Director, Aquarian Consult Limited. Thank you all for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.